Hi, I'm Danny,
Hi, I'm Mel.
and we're the Sheehan sisters. If you haven't seen our faces before, we like to do podcast and commentary style videos on topics we like to talk about.
So, as always, grab your coffee, your tea, your beverage of choice, get some snacks, get cozy, because we have a lot to talk about today.
Yes, today we're touching on pretty heavy and sensitive topics. So, we do want to start with a trigger warning. This may not be the type of video, obviously you're going to see the title, so you clicked on it, but just confirming this may not be a type of video that you are able to consume. So please watch at your discretion. We do want to start with a reminder of our book club. We are reading The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison this month. And we released the book of the month in our last episode 8, right? This is episode 9.
Yes, this is episode 9.
So this is our book for February. Please get your copy and join us. We also want to give a trigger warning for the context of this book. I mentioned I read this book a couple years ago, and I had a vague memory of this story, but now that I'm reading it, I'm realizing how sensitive this story is.
Right. We did read the back of the book in our last episode to give a summary, but it didn't give too much information as to the kind of subjects that they go into in the book. So we do want to also give a trigger warning, like Danny said, in case you're not comfortable reading about, I guess to be a little more specific, if you're not comfortable reading about sexual assault, because trigger warning can be on anything, and I just want to say specifically what it is on. I've been having a little trouble getting through the book, but I still encourage you guys to go out and get it and read it.
Yes, we also wanted to mention that there is some explicit language in this book. So these are just things to keep in mind if you are reading along with us. We do think it's important to read this regardless. I know it can be difficult reading about such sensitive subjects. And we even mentioned in our last episode that even though this is considered a fiction book, it's unfortunately a little too real. And that ties into the topics we are going to be talking about later on in this episode.
Right. This is definitely going to be one of our darker episodes, but these are topics that Danny and I want to discuss and bring awareness to and not shy away from. And that doesn't mean that there's not going to be more lighthearted videos in the future. You know what I was thinking about recently? How when we first started this channel, which is many years ago, and even when we decided to return back, like over a year ago now, we decided to return back to making videos, and we kept saying, like, we're gonna be the distraction, we're gonna distract people, and we're gonna do this. And I think our moral compass keeps directing us back to what is happening, because these are conversations you and I are constantly having with each other, and we're just both people who don't want to look away and don't want to be silenced. And we're like, okay, well, we have this platform and it's not big yet, but we want it to be. And we want to use our voice. Like, we love to talk. We joke around and we love to yap. And we're like, well, we better start saying some important shit then.
So we did mention our book club, and these next two videos I'm going to be showing are old news in today's world, and that's something Mel and I have mentioned too. we're late to things, you know. By the time we're filming and by the time we edit and by the time it's posted, to today's society, it's old news, right? And that's something we are not going to care about, right? If we want to talk about a news article or what I'm about to show right now, a news outlet that is showcasing a story that was from 2 weeks ago, but by the time we edit and get this up, this will be a month old. You know what I'm saying? So it's fine. I think it's okay that we're sharing old news. I think as long as it's relevant and it's significant and it's important, then why not share it with you all? Maybe you all didn't get to see this and it got buried in your feed. So yeah, we're gonna be sharing old stories, and we think it's still relevant.
Exactly. It's old but relevant is what I like to say. And 2 weeks is not even that long ago. And we should be preserving history. And again, 2 weeks is not that long ago. And it's like we can talk about topics that happened 20, 30 years ago because it's important to talk about it. Would you say that this is going to be somewhat of a creator spotlight?
I mean, we are going to be talking about an author. So of course, that's our creator right there. But we're also talking about a bookstore owner. And the reason I wanted to share this today is because these two news stories are highlighting books and reading. And it makes me so happy to see that the collective is rallying behind this author and also this bookstore owner. And we really do want to see that movement, that rise in literature and education again. Okay.
We're starting the video off with a some good news before we get into the darkness.
Well, good news out of tragedy, I would say.
Some glimmer of hope.
So I think another big event, right, that is kind of dying down is the protests and the tragic deaths in Minneapolis.
I do want to say I think it's only dying down if you refuse to pay attention. And that kind of goes for everything that we're going to talk about, because everyone's algorithm is different. And that's where I mainly get a lot of my news source from, because I don't watch the news. I just go onto social media and I follow journalists and activists through there to get my news. So obviously if you change your algorithm or you don't follow these pages, then it's going to die down, or like if you're not engaging in these conversations, then it's going to feel like it's not happening.
Or rather, it gets buried because, again, there is so much going on that every other week there's this catastrophic or like major turning point. I don't even want to use turning point anymore after that nasty, ugly event.
They have multiple ugly events.
Yes, I know they do. It's just the most recent one. So after the unfortunate tragic death of Alex Preddy, we saw a continuous rise in protest and activism in Minneapolis. And there was this viral moment of this older gentleman outraged, rightfully so. And it turns out he's actually a bookstore owner. And once his clip went viral, people learned where his bookstore was and started supporting his business. And that makes me so happy because A, we're supporting local businesses, and B, we're reading, right? We're educating ourselves and we're stimulating our brains in the right way. So I want to share this clip with you all.
I'm fine. I didn't breathe anything. I'm just angry. I'm 70 years old. Get angry.
The raw emotion of that man from Minnesota touched a nerve with many.
Photojournalist Nick Luneman and Aaron Hassanzada found him today at his bookstore.
Hello, Dreamhaven Books. Can I help you?
Most days at Dreamhaven Books and Comics sound like this.
Ha! No peanuts spilled.
Boxes to fill, orders to sort, and a phone that hardly rings.
Careful, peanuts.
Oh, you're welcome.
But today-
I'm afraid our website's down at the moment because there's been so much activity.
69-year-old Greg Ketter and his staff are being flooded with orders on a scale he has never seen.
We got Patton Oswalt and Canadians here. It's been insane. I never pictured anything like this. It's gone truly global.
Greg will tell you he didn't do anything special.
People have been amazingly kind and they just want to help.
Others disagree.
Thank you. Okay, bye-bye now. Take care. Wow. Oh, just a woman from Memphis.
This all started when he heard about the killing of Alex Preddy, just minutes away from his store.
Stop! This is personal, being right here in Minneapolis. I mean, this is the U.S. government attacking its own people, and that's what just got to me.
With temperatures in the negatives, air filled with tear gas, Greg says he stood up for his community.
I was just doing what I felt was necessary, was right. There are other people who have done a lot more.
Like the covers of his comics,
I'll say I wasn't even running, I just walked.
Greg was caught with his own superhero moment.
When I saw the photo of Greg running through the tear gas and looked into who he was in the community, I told Rachel we have to come and support him.
Maybe drawing a little inspiration.
He's a hero to me. He's so brave.
From these pages.
Oh, they'd absolutely be on my side. Truth, justice, and the American way. And he'd be absolutely appalled at this sort of American way.
What did you think about that news story?
I have a lot of thoughts, and I'm trying to gather them before I speak. I feel like him shouting in the street is kind of how we all feel, and many people have been feeling this for generations, and I'm glad that more and more people are starting to wake up and realize what's going on in this country.
Right, this man has seen a lot. I mean,
right, and
been around.
Right, 70 years old. I'm sure he's probably tired of it all. Like, you keep hoping at some point things are gonna get better, right? And I'm glad there's some good that came out of it, and people are supporting his business.
I also find it interesting they were mentioning about comic book superheroes, and he was saying that they would be on his side if they were real, right?
Right, it seems like only the supervillains are real in this lifetime. And my favorite superhero is Batman. Who's a strong believer in justice, even though no ethical billionaires. I've been having a very internal quarrel about that, even though he's a fictional character. I'm like, anyway, that's a whole nother conversation if any of you are interested in that. Right, or it's like, where are the people who are actually coming to save us? And in actuality, there isn't any. We have to be those people.
The collective are the superheroes. The next story I want to share does tie into the news story I just presented. This is also another news story. This is from News 12, and this was another viral moment where a UPS driver was delivering a bunch of books, and he finds out that the person he was delivering to is the author of these books. So I wanted to share this because after this moment went viral, again, the collective rallied behind the author and started buying his book. So I think that's amazing. Part of humanity is supporting one another, and that's how we bring power back to the people, is by supporting one another, because we know our administration is not going to support us. We need to back smaller artists and local businesses, and that's where we're staying true to our community.
A moment of kindness in Linden between a UPS driver and a local author who was getting his books delivered. It's gone viral on social media with over 33 million views on TikTok. News 12's Jack Ford gives us a look at this special delivery.
Look at all these books. I'm gonna give you one.
In this video posted to TikTok, Ring Video shows UPS driver Kyle is dropping off copies of the book, Call Me First, a man's blueprint to true leadership at home, to its author, Damian Lewis, and gets gifted a copy.
So you wrote? Yeah. Yo, I'm happy for you, bro.
Well, the UPS driver read it, and days later returned to Damian's home to tell him how much he loved the book.
Man, I just wanted to say the book is really good. Hey, what's up, Kyle, man? Thank you, bro. I appreciate that. Where can you buy that book?
For him not to have a delivery for me that day when he came back to tell me how good the book was and to ask me where to get it, it was like I felt like I made it at that point.
A moment of kindness that led to 33 million views on TikTok. And in a day and age where package deliveries may seem impersonal, for Kyle, bringing that human connection, well, it's part of the job.
UPS, we provide a close, meaningful relationship with every one of them with respect and kindness and gratitude. And that's exactly the kind of service that I hope to provide when I'm at work.
The moment meant something to both of them. Damian tells us this book doing well was his last chance to pay the bills. And after this, over 9,000 copies have been sold.
I feel blessed beyond anything I could ever expected. I feel like, I almost feel like I don't deserve it, but I'm so welcoming for everything that has happened. Well, I'm just blown away by it. I just don't even know how to put it into words, everything that it has done for us.
And for Kyle, who's actually starting a small business of his own, Preservation Pantry, with his fellow UPS driver, Drew, it was an inspiration for them.
It's just so great seeing like a bunch of hardworking men come together in entrepreneurship and just, like I said, being able to support each other and help grow. And just, I feel like it's what we need right now.
I'm going to be getting emotional through this whole video, especially the more of the topics we go into. But when he said he felt like he didn't deserve it, like,
I know.
Oh my God, that makes me so sad. And I also love when things are kind of like kismic of like, he's delivering this and just having a normal conversation of like, hey, like what did you get? Like, what are these books? Like, what are you ordering? And then finding out that it is an entrepreneur starting his own publishing and trying to get his book out there. And it's about, right from what I understood, the book is about like building a business or like building your career in, is that what he was saying?
Let's verify before we misspeak. Damian Lewis takes you inside his own journey from immaturity and rebellion to intentional manhood, fatherhood, and leadership. Born in Jamaica and raised on structure and discipline, he later faced a hard truth that becoming a husband and father meant everything had to change. In these pages, he shares the lessons learned through real struggles and victories, offering men a clear and relatable path forward. Wow.
I love that. But yeah, a book on leadership, and these men are also trying to start their own business, and it just kind of fell into their hands. Like, it was meant for them to meet. And yeah, we need more men like that in general who are teaching other men, which also falls into a lot of the categories we're going to talk about today. But men teaching other men how to be better and how to be vulnerable and have conversations that are uncomfortable and how to improve themselves.
And how to take accountability.
But not all men, don't worry. Before anyone feels attacked.
I do want to point out, reading the summary of the book and a little bit about the author, he was born in Jamaica. And what do we realize? Again, a reminder that immigrants are also the pillars of this country and are able to contribute in a positive way. I'm not even going to I don't even have to say anything more than that.
Right. But also we're all I think we're all immigrants. I think
we're all immigrants.
I think none of us except the indigenous people of this land.
Right. We do have a short we're going to be posting shortly.
We have a lot of shorts. Guys, we have a lot of things planned and we're trying our best.
But I do want to say the fact that we view any human being as illegal is such a bizarre construct. And I just want to remind everyone that we made all of this up. We made all of this up.
It's all make-believe. White men made all of this up.
White men made all of this up.
And why did we allow that? And why do we still allow it? Should I introduce our next?
We can move on to the next topic.
Okay. If you're in Minnesota, support the bookstore. And maybe, I would say maybe we'll look into that book, but I don't know if it's for us. I know, again, you can still read books that aren't directly for you, but if you feel like this book pertains to you, then definitely check it out and support Damian.
Right, maybe there's some men we could get to read it in our lives.
Gift it to anyone, you know? But no, go ahead.
I was going to say for Father's Day, but that's a little down the road. Support Damian sooner than later.
Yeah, just a surprise gift. You can give someone a gift without there being any special day. All right. Our next topic, and one of our main topics, like the bulk of the video, we are going to be talking about the movie Blink Twice. We like to find media, whether it's books, news outlets, TV shows, movies, and kind of relate it to real world topics. And so this movie came out in 2024. It's directed by Zoe Kravitz. And I just watched it recently this year, and I was like, Danny, you should watch this. And then she checked it out and was like, let's talk about it. And it just so happened the time we were watching this, it was the same time the Epstein Files got released. So we just felt like, okay, and the Epstein Files and the Epstein trials and cases, this is something that's been going on since the 80s. So the movie definitely mirrors real life.
And was written and directed by someone who grew up in the industry.
Yes, if you don't know, Zoe Kravitz is Lenny Kravitz's daughter. If you don't know who Lenny Kravitz is, I can't help you there. Maybe you're too young.
A very, very famous musician.
Yes.
So, as you all know, I like to give summaries of the book, the movie, the TV series, and I have been working on how to give a short synopsis so that I'm not just telling the whole movie. So we did prepare in advance and wrote down a summary. Blink Twice is a movie about a nefarious tech billionaire who owns his own island and takes his friends and various women to vacation on the island. See? Super short. You get the concept.
Right.
Without revealing too much, however, we are going to be revealing a lot about this movie, so definitely spoiler alerts ahead. If you haven't seen the movie, go watch it. Again, it is a movie that showcases very sensitive and disturbing scenes, so please keep that in mind. There is a trigger warning at the very beginning of the movie, which is appreciated.
Right. Although that's why before I got specific about for the book and this video, because something I've noticed with some trigger warnings for things I've watched, it'll say like mature content or something along those lines, and you're never fully ready for what exactly is going to be shown because that can mean a lot of things. All right. And I just want to say the two, or I guess the three main stars of the movie, Channing Tatum, who plays billionaire tech mogul Slater King, Naomi Ackie, who plays Frida, and I want to say her name correctly, Adria Arjona, who plays Sarah, I would say are the three main protagonists. Would you agree?
I do agree.
And the acting, phenomenal in the movie.
Why don't we start with our opinions of the movie? What did you think? I would say first, going into it, like, did you have any thoughts before you watched it? And then what were your thoughts after you watched it?
So I had seen some post on social media about the movie, which is why I had wanted to watch it. There wasn't a lot of promotion around it. Like Danny had even said she didn't know it, and I'd only known of it because I'd seen people talking about it online. So I was aware of the topic that it was going to go into.
How did you feel after you watched it?
I didn't feel good after I watched it, but again, these are just hard things to talk about, but still important to talk about.
I spiraled after I watched it. One thing about me, whenever I watch a movie or a show that really sticks with me, I deep dive on it. And I even went back to certain scenes because they really disturbed me and like disrupted something within me that made me want to analyze it a little bit more.
What were you specifically spiraling about? I think I know, but I don't want to make assumptions. So like, what was it that, like, what was your train of thought after watching it?
I think the movie started off, I was going to say slow, but they do immerse you into that world immediately. But navigating the real purpose behind the vacation is a slow burn. I feel like once we got the reveal, the rapid pace from that point on startled me because we were initially brought into a beautiful tropical setting, and sure, there were hints of something weird is going on here. And again, if you aren't familiar what the movie is about and you're just going in blind, I think it can take you aback. Right? Is that the right word?
Yeah.
It's jarring. I would say it was jarring to be. It was jarring to witness those scenes. You start to backpedal everything you were watching prior and realizing what was truly going on that we didn't see yet. Which is why I wanted to go back to certain scenes, because once it's revealed, once the disturbing truth is revealed, you're like, oh my God, like looking back at this scene, this all makes sense now, and just makes you realize what exactly you are witnessing from the earlier scenes. Does this make sense?
Yeah, I get it. They did a good job of foreshadowing things.
And looking back, the scenes, like the nights, are all jumbled, right? Like we're not getting a chronological order of what's happening on the island. And I think it's also even pointed out by the main protagonist, Frida, who is like, what day is it? You know, constantly trying to figure out what day it is, what time it is. Like, they don't really have a concept of reality.
Right, of course. And that's what they wanted. That's what Slater intended, of like, you're going to be drunk, you're going to be on drugs. They're also giving them other things that they're unaware of. They're on substances that they don't even know they're on. So that's kind of the point of like, you're not supposed to really know what's happening at all. And one thing I was going to ask also is, before we get into the turning, not the turning point.
They ruin it. They ruin words for us.
Before we get into the climax of the story, I was going to ask you, would you have gone with him if you had met this like rich, good-looking, handsome man who was like, let's go to my private island? Obviously now, with information we know of the world, maybe not, but do you think that there was a point in time where you would have been like, yeah, let's go?
I think so. And one of the first bullet points we wrote down was that there is this lore and of a luxurious lifestyle that intrigues a lot of us, and we do want to feel special and chosen. And for someone like us, we've never been on a private jet or to a beautiful island. So I can see that being enticing to me. And I've said this to people in my life. I've done a lot of stupid and dangerous things in my 20s that I'm lucky nothing worse happened. I'm lucky that I'm still alive. I'm lucky that I didn't get kidnapped or someone didn't kill me. So that's why I have to be honest and say, yeah, like in my 20s, 20-year-old Danny, she might have gone on this private jet, especially if I was with my bestie.
That's exactly, yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Because so in the storyline, she's with her best friend and they go together. And that's what I was thinking too. Like me in my early 20s, oh, she would have been there. She would have been like, let's go. And, or like even if me and you were together, like you and I would go out drinking together all the time. And like, again, we'd put ourselves in situations that we shouldn't have. And if you know, and this is something Zoe Kravitz said about casting Channing Tatum, because he is a good-looking person. He's usually in comedy movies. He's unsuspecting. So someone like that comes up to you, they're good-looking, and they're talking you up, and they're charming you, and they're like, yeah, let's go. Like, yeah, me in my early 20s would have been like, I'm gonna go.
And that's where we talk about victim blaming, right? Because there could be so many people that look at Frida and her best friend and blame them for even going to a private island with strangers.
That was exactly going to be my next point, because I'm like, well, as much as me and Danny would have been, I was going to say dumb bitches, but you know, like, let's go, we're going. And I have other friends who I know would have been like, we're going. And then I also know that I would have had friends who were like, you're stupid and you're crazy. What are you doing? Because again, when there were nights where I was being belligerent, honestly, and not to blame myself for it, like there are people out there who are like, what are you doing? And you're just like, you're boring, whatever, right? You know, like there are, like you said, the people out there who are gonna blame the victims for going. Be like, well, why would you go with a stranger? Why would you even do that? And again, double-edged sword of like, you're just trying to have fun and be impulsive and do these things. And also, another note I want to make is, sadly, you don't have to be a rich billionaire that takes you to an island to have things like this happen. It could just be someone you meet at a party, or someone in your friend group, in your family, someone unsuspecting. I mean, as it's always unsuspected, I feel like you never truly know.
Right, and the thing is, so many women, they'll get the intuition. They may have that moment where they're like, oh, I don't know about this, but then we push it aside and we're like, no, I'm just being paranoid, or I'm just being fearful, like everything's going to be fine. And then the night turns and you look back and you're like, I should have followed my gut the whole time.
Right, and then again, they're being drugged on this island, and that's another part to take into it, where it's like sometimes, and most of the time actually, it's out of your control. So it's like you can try to, obviously your brain is going to try to understand what happened and justify what happened and come to some sort of conclusion, but then it's at the end of the day, it's like it was all out of your control. Like, you didn't know that someone was going to slip a drug into your drink, and in this case he put it into perfume.
Right, I do think the champagne was getting drugged as well. I think there were multiple ways they were drugging the women.
Right.
And I do want to point out, yes, women can look back and say, oh, the signs were there. But ultimately, the person who's the piece of shit is always the one to blame. The predator is always the one to blame. You would think that it would be so easy for people to just be good and moral. And so many aren't, unfortunately.
Right, and we spoke about this in previous videos, how we have to teach women and children to have discernment and be vigilant, and you need to do all these things to make sure it doesn't happen to you, instead of teaching men, which I think, again, bringing back the author that you showed who's writing a book to teach men how to be good leaders. It's like, that's what we need more of, is like correcting the man's behavior rather than telling the women what they did wrong, and like telling them what to wear and not to drink, and this and all these steps they have to take to protect themselves, instead of being like, well, how about men don't act this way? And there are a lot of men out there who get so defensive, and this is the part that really pisses me off. The men out there who claim so much that they're not like that and they're good men, and they constantly want to hear not all men, and they start to feel attacked. And it's like, I don't feel sorry for you that you're being put in a category with predators and terrible people, because that's the reality that so many women face on a daily basis. And instead of being upset that you're being categorized that way, be upset about the men that are causing that. Like, they start to attack the people that are saying these things. Does this make sense? Do you understand like the point I'm trying to get across?
100%.
Where they're like, oh, I don't want women to not feel safe around me. And it's like, it has nothing to do with who you are. It's like, you have to gain someone's trust and you have to prove to them. And I'm so sorry if that's so much work for you to make a woman feel safe and comfortable.
Well, that's what I was going to point out. There are many ways a man can show that they are safe to be around. And I think one of the best things you can do as a man is to hold other men accountable. And if you see them being misogynistic or being predatorial, stepping in, speaking up, and protecting the women you're around is a great way to show them that you're someone who's safe. And unfortunately, I was going to say, it still might not be enough. That's what I was going to say, because there's a story that comes to mind, and this story has stuck with me and has truly disturbed me. There was a woman who was sexually assaulted, and after fleeing from that assault, what ended up happening was she was in the middle of being assaulted, and a man came and stopped the assault, and she thought she was safe with him, only for him to go and assault her as well. So it's really tough. It's really tough. This is why a lot of women have trust issues, and this is why women unfortunately have to stay in groups. Don't leave your friends. And Mel and I have been stupid and left one another, and we've been gone on our own because we're like, we're fine, we're independent, we're good. And I think looking back, we realized that it's important to stay with your friends and stay as a group. And if you come to a place together, you leave together.
Of course, I agree with you. Stay with your group, and we have to protect each other. But then again, it's still the same rhetoric of like what we have to do to stay safe. But one thing I was gonna say regarding the men who feel attacked when these conversations are being had, we as humans, when you go through a traumatic event, your body wants to prevent that from happening to you again. And the best way I maybe can even explain that is, if you're in a forest and there's a bunch of mushrooms, and a mushroom could kill you, and you now have to figure out which of those mushrooms can kill you and which can't. That is the same thing with the men. Like, if you pick the wrong one, they could kill you, and that's not an exaggeration. There's so many statistics and stories to back that up. And there's no real detection. Like I was just saying, it could be anyone. It's always unsuspected because you don't want to assume that that someone is going to do that to you. So again, your brain is going to generalize and be like, man, danger, unsafe. Like, that is what your body is perceiving. And I maybe not explaining it in the best scientific way, but there are, maybe we'll link some articles down below, but there is a neuroscience behind that. Like, if you were to be attacked by a dog, you are going to be scared of all dogs, even if it's a tiny little cute little thing. Your brain goes, this is what harmed me in the past.
Right. And I was thinking about how so many men, when they have daughters, a lot of the times they want to raise her a certain way where they're saying, I don't want my daughter going out. Oh, my daughter's not allowed to date until this age. Or my daughter can't go to parties, and my daughter can't do this, and my daughter can't do that. And I agree with you. This is, it shouldn't have to be, how to tell your daughter to the harms of society. It should be the men and the fathers that are talking to one another and speaking to their guy friends, or speaking to their male coworkers, or just speaking out on platforms in general, addressing these concerns to the men rather than putting that on their daughter.
Exactly. And they should be calling each other out. And there's a part of them that protects that. I don't even know if it's a lifestyle or what, because they also partake in it. A lot of them know, oh yeah, men are pigs, men are disgusting, because they've been in those conversations and they either said nothing, or they laughed, or they agreed, or they partook in it. And as someone who's worked in a very male-dominated field for a long time, I've unfortunately been in what I would call like the locker room, because they call it locker room talk, which it should just not even be talk that is taking place anywhere. And I've noticed that there are some men who will say certain things and then notice my reaction, and sometimes I speak up and then go, oh, I can't say that in front of you. And I'm like, no, you can't say that at all. Like, you can't say that, period. Like, why do you think that that is okay for you to even say? And then they'll tailor themselves around certain people to be like, oh, well, we got to be careful what we say, because this person's going to get upset, and this person's going to be sensitive, and this person's going to be that. Instead of having the moment of realization to go, oh yeah, maybe that is wrong. And again, not all men, because y'all are the sensitive ones.
But that's the thing, right? Do we even have to say that? Because if you're the man watching this and you know that that's not your character, then why do we even have to have a disclaimer of like, oh, hey, we're not talking about you?
Exactly.
The man watching this who isn't that type of person should just know in their heart and their soul that they're not this type of man. So there should be no trigger, right? And that's the thing, is if you're the men that are getting triggered and sensitive, why don't you reflect and ask yourself why?
And I think I know the answer. It's because of what I just said, where they know that they've sat in rooms where these conversations took place and they didn't do anything about it. And now they're scared, as they should be, that they know that if they were to be caught, or that they know if their friends were to be caught and they're associated with them, like, they know that it's wrong. That's where the trigger is coming from. It's sitting deep within them to be like, fuck, well, actually. And I remember this when, I don't remember his first name, but when Kavanaugh was going to be elected into the Supreme Court.
Brett Kavanaugh.
And the woman came forward. I'm so sorry. I should know her name more than his name. And she spoke of a story that happened. And even just when the whole Me Too movement happened, all these men came up and been like, oh, well, women are just going to accuse you of anything. Of, oh, you got to be... It's like, yeah, you should be careful what you say. You should be careful what you do. And you should be more aware of your fucking actions. Because for so long, and even now till this day, women are treated poorly. They're disrespected. They're disregarded. They're not taken seriously. Men think that they can say anything to them. They think they can put their hands on them. Like, one thing that drives me fucking insane, and I know every woman feels this way, where a man is walking past you and he puts his hand on your waist. That little thing right there is just so unnecessary. And you could think that you're the greatest man ever. Just that small action is just telling it of itself.
You know what the scary part is? Kavanaugh still serves on the U.S. Supreme Court.
And look who our president is. And that's, again, we're going to get into this whole conversation when we talk about the Epstein Files. We're like, that's why these conversations are important, because the survivors are still not being taken seriously.
I wanted to ask you, to bring it back to Blink Twice. There's the character Lucas. He's the younger character.
The blonde,
yeah, the blonde guy. I've read some mixed opinions on his character and his purpose on the island. Some people think that he is also a victim, and some people think that he's undergoing his initiation.
Okay, right. I saw him as a victim, but I also did see him, people were saying he's like a bystander who's not saying anything. But he was also given the perfume, he was also forgetting. So again, if you're not familiar with the film, the people on the island, the women specifically, are given a perfume to forget everything that's taking place. And they find out that snake venom helps them remember. So I don't know how he got a part of it. I don't know how he ended up getting the venom, but he ended up at the end when everything was going on, he started to remember and kind of woke up and was like, holy shit, what's happening?
I don't think he got the venom to remember. He just started seeing the women attacking the other men, and that's what confused him, because he didn't know why they were attacking Slater and his friends.
Okay, yes, now you're right. So he never remembered anything. He was just confused as to why that was taking place.
Some people theorize that because he didn't want to participate and go along with the sexual assault, that they decided to make him forget so that he wouldn't be a problem in the future.
So I thought he was a victim. What did you think?
Well, this is why I wanted to talk about it, because there are multiple theories about the purpose of his character. So could it be that they were trying to initiate him into the island and have him start being a participant in the sexual assaults, but then he didn't want to go along with it? So maybe they did make him a victim, or they knew that they had to make him forget so that he wouldn't be a witness to the heinous acts and wouldn't be able to speak on it after they leave the island.
Right.
Or he also is a representation that boys and men are also victims of sexual assault.
Right. And again, like, he could have been brought along, like you said, maybe to be initiated, or maybe just he got swept in, whatever, when they're like, oh, let's all go party, and he just was someone who just kind of joined in, not knowing.
Right, which also can be a representation of the bystander who's like, okay, I see what these other men are doing, but I'm not going to say anything, or I'm not going to protect these women. Because remember at the end when Slater is having that one-on-one conversation with him, when everything kind of blows up in Slater's face, he was telling him, like, you didn't do anything. And then he was like, oh, thank God, because he was relieved that he didn't participate in the assaults. But then Slater was making it seem like, but you didn't do anything for the women, in, like, I think in a sexual way or in a way to protect them. I think it was twofold.
Oh my God, there's like someone fucking lawn mowing or something right now.
Oh my God.
This fucking building can pay for a fucking leaf blower. It's the middle of winter. There's no fucking leaves, but don't want to come fix my fucking sink. Like, I get it. You're just doing your job, but nothing's happening. Anyway, I'm sorry. All right. Right. So Slater says to him, you did nothing, but it also seems like he is clueless as to what's happening. So
he is clueless, but that's why I feel like he could represent he could be a representation for many different type of men, right? He could be one of the male victims, or he could be the male bystander who doesn't do anything to help protect the women or speak up in support of the women. That's how I took it, is like this character could represent a multitude of the type of men in a situation like this.
Right. I just don't understand how he could be, I get how he could be a bystander, but also not. Like, if he's doesn't know what's going on, then how can he save the women? Because he's like, you didn't do anything. But if he clearly got a black eye and was punched, there's a moment of him either trying to escape or trying to do something that we didn't fully see.
Right, but maybe he got the black eye because he was refusing to participate. And then that's when they decided, okay, well, we have to make him forget. Because all the women, all of them became alert at night when they realized the abuse, right? Like, all the women were aware that they were being abused. And it wasn't until the next day where they have the potion and they have the perfume to make them forget. So in the moment, the women are realizing the horrific acts upon them, but by the morning, they don't remember everything that happened to them. So I feel like in the moment, Lucas is aware of what's going on and is aware of what all the men are, their true intentions. So that's why he's freaking out also. But because he doesn't want to go along, he doesn't want to participate, they're like, well, we need to do something so he doesn't remember what we just did to all the women. Or he also is a victim. That's what I'm saying. I think it's open for interpretation.
Right. I just think if he ends up being drugged to forget, then how much can he really do?
Right, but in the moment, if they're all alert to what's going on, right, I don't think he would be able to do anything anyways, because it's like 4 against 1. If he decided to fight against the men, they would still be able to restrain him.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that one is up for interpretation, that character.
For sure.
I wanted to ask you, what do you think about the maid who gave Frida the venom?
Her role also confused me a bit, although I understand that when people like this exist, they obviously have people around them who are to some extent like witnessing what is happening or have some idea of what's going on. So,
and they're probably also scared.
Yeah, they're scared to come forward, they're scared to speak up. So I think it was intentional that she gave her the venom.
I agree.
What did you think?
I agree. She remembered her, and I think she felt pity for her that she was back at the island. And we still don't know how many times Frida really was at the island.
Right. The line where he goes, "You're my best friend," like that was so chilling.
I was going to bring that up too.
And I was just like, holy shit. Like that was the even bigger plot twist of like, you've been here so many times before, like this is what we do, which is even scarier. But then again, is also what happens in real life. And then there's also, again, the people he's surrounded by, his assistant. What was her name?
Let me pull it up. Stacy.
Stacy, who is also being given the perfume to forget what's happening.
So some people theorize that that was Slater's sister, but I don't think it was.
Okay, he does mention his sister when he talks about his childhood.
I think it also is a representation of women who are bystanders as well. There's this moment where Frida gives her the venom and Stacy remembers everything that's occurring. And what does she say to Frida? She calls her a dumb bitch and says, "These men are gonna do what they do."
Right, and then she even goes and says, "I didn't want to remember." So, and I was having this conversation with Danny recently, and Slater says this, and we put this down, that forgetting is a gift. And that's what a lot of survivors do. They put their trauma away. They want to forget that it happened because it feels like it's easier to go about life just forgetting it. Because sometimes you're like, okay, I remember that this happened, but what is going to come of that? And I think that also shows why Frida made the decision that she did in the end. Are we ready to go into that, or did you want to say more about the assistant?
No, we can go into that. I do want to mention, because we did have this conversation off camera where I said I would be interested in doing regression therapy because there's a lot of things from our childhood that I don't remember or I have blocked out. And then that's how we led into this conversation. And then the overall theme of Slater and his, he has his own trauma.
Right. Which again, hurt people, and it's usually shown that a lot of people have their own trauma that was inflicted on them and they repeat that cycle.
I think we can definitely go into the ending if you want to. Is there something specifically before we mention? We could circle back to other scenes in the movie.
Right. Well, I just want to say to go into the forgetting is a gift and how you want to forget that it happened to you, because what is really going to come of remembering it, and just the whole conversation of not being believed. And
right.
Even at the end, was it Sarah? Sarah turns to Frida and is like, are you sure about your decision that you made? So we know that Frida gives Slater the venom to make him forget everything that just happened.
Not the venom.
Not the venom, sorry. She gives him the perfume. She puts that potion, whatever it is, into his vape so that he now forgets everything that just happened. So she can now use him to her advantage. And I was reading through a Reddit thread about the movie, and this person commented that it was unrealistic for her to want to stay with her abuser. And I don't know how old the person was that commented that, but it's actually very normal for people to stay with their abuser, befriend their abusers,
keep tabs on their abusers.
It's some sort of a coping mechanism and defense mechanism. And I felt like for Frida, it was the only way for her to get her power back. Because if she were to kill him, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think the police are going to believe her that all of this took place?
And there's even a scene before the ending where her and Sarah are having a conversation once they realize the truth, where they're playing out the conversation of okay, well, if I do call the police, this is what's going to be said and it's not going to get anywhere. Do you remember this scene?
Yes. Because they're like, okay, what do we do? We now know what's happening. What do we do? Who do we call? We're in the middle of an island. How are we going to get off?
Right. And it just makes it even harder when your abuser is a billionaire, is
a powerful person.
Exactly. We already see that there is no justice, whether the abuser is of some sort of substantial position in society or whether they're just a common folk. It's very hard for women to get justice when it comes to sexual assault.
Right. So I think it was realistic for her to not kill him and to be like, okay, well, what can I gain from this? And she makes him forget. She has him transfer his company into her name, and she gets whatever she could out of the situation. And not to say that money is going to solve all your issues, because it's not, but it was what does she have? Either she kills him and goes to jail because she's stuck on an island. How else is she gonna try to steal a jet or something? You know what I'm saying? What is she realistically gonna do in that situation to get out of it? And obviously there's gonna be an investigation if a billionaire is murdered. She's gonna, and then even if she's doesn't give him the venom, he's either gonna not the venom. If she doesn't give him the potion, he's just gonna do that same thing back to her, as he has been doing over and over again.
We see what was his name? Let me look it up. At the end, we see her talking to his therapist, right? Mm-hmm. Rich. His name's Rich. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
Where they're sitting at the table and he didn't see her face at first and was like, "Oh, I don't think we ever met." And she turned around and she said, "Yes, we have, Rich." And then he had this scared look on his face. So I think even her just having that power now is going to be a threat to those that are connected to Slater.
Right, because he was used to these people not remembering, and she's like, no, I remember everything, actually.
I know a lot of people were divided on the ending.
Right.
I think even the ending was a good plot twist. I wasn't really sure what was going to happen. I did think that they were going to let Slater die in the burning mansion.
Right, and then it's like, oh, well, you could just let it burn. It could have been an accident. But, you know, I think I like the ending that happened just because I felt like it was her claiming her power back.
I agree.
Taking away all of his.
I agree with that.
Was there anything else you wanted to point out about the movie?
There was, actually.
Okay.
There's a scene where almost everyone is dead except for Slater. And he's sitting on his chair talking to Frida. And he kind of mocks the fact that it's easy for him to get away with these acts because A, no one's going to believe the victims, and B, he can just get on a public platform and put on a performance. And he starts to recite an apology.
Right, and we see that in the beginning of the movie that he had been canceled for, I don't remember specifically for what, but he, in the beginning of the movie,
they were vague about it, but they set the scene that this is something he does regularly. That's what I took.
Right, he messed up and he went and made a video, and that's what she's watching in the beginning. So again, it comes full circle. She's like watching his apology video online in the beginning. And then again, yeah, so then to go back to the scene you're explaining.
He starts putting on the performance of how he would apologize. And then there's this moment where he repeatedly says, "I'm sorry." I do want to point out, I thought that was great acting by Channing Tatum.
Yeah, that was a powerful scene.
And that scene really affected me, where he started screaming, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." And of course we can connect it to the real world, where we do have these powerful players who are like, yes, let's get the script going. This is what I'm going to recite in the public eye. And I'm going to present it in an emotional way so that I gain their trust back. And I feel like that's what he was showing, is like, well, I have the ability to emotionally manipulate the people around me.
Yeah.
I don't know, the I'm sorry, just it haunted me in a way.
Yeah, that was a really good scene.
But then I also feel like there was something within him that was like apologizing to his younger self.
Right, because again, he also, like we had mentioned, he recounts his own trauma.
But the fact that he could just turn on those emotions and then turn them off so seamlessly is so eerie.
Yeah, but I feel like, sadly enough, I feel like, can't we all do that? And isn't that what most people do when they get up and they go to work? And everyone kind of puts on their persona of the day.
Well said.
Let us know down below if you've watched the movie and your thoughts on the movie. We brought this movie up in particular because another main topic we want to talk about today is the release of the Epstein Files.
I was telling Mel, I started reading a lot of the files. Truly not as much as there are that were released. I don't think one can even be able to. So, you know, it's one thing to consume information of the files through other platforms or through other creators, and then it's another thing to actually click on the files and read them yourself. I started spiraling, and it became overwhelming, and it's hard to even say that, because if I'm feeling these certain emotions while I'm reading them, and I can't even, I'm not even able to fathom the extent of what these women are still going through to this day. And one of the reasons we're talking about this is because we do feel that we can't and we shouldn't look away. We would be doing a disservice to the women that were brave enough to come out and report Epstein and everyone involved.
Exactly. And I wrote some thoughts down because this was going to be hard for me to talk about, and I wanted to collect my thoughts. I wrote this, not ChatGPT, but I am going to be reading off of something just for a second. So to go off of what you said, how it can be overwhelming. And you and I have talked, I'm going to be kind of reading off of it, kind of just going, just this is what I'm using as my, if you see me looking down. You and I have talked about overconsumption on this podcast. And obviously media falls into that category. And I could understand that, especially regarding this topic, that's definitely not something you might want to overconsume. You don't want to take in all of this because it's going to be overwhelming. And I keep seeing, I don't know if you've seen posts of people trying to say that they need to protect their peace, and that it's like going off of what you're saying of like it's not good to consume this much. And in my opinion, it's just an injustice to the survivors to pretend that this isn't happening. And it's just concerning to me that everyone's concerned about protecting their peace and saying they don't have control over any of this, right? People start to feel powerless. And it's like, who is protecting these women and children? And I think we do have power, and we should be speaking up for those who can't. We should be getting involved in politics. And this isn't even politics at the end of the day. This is human rights. The same thing with what's going on with ICE, with what's going on in Palestine. These are all human right violations. And we're supposed to be in a democracy. And lately, with posts that I've been seeing, I feel like most people would be perfectly submissive to a dictatorship. Because that's what's happening, right? That's what's happening before our eyes. We just want to continue to distract ourselves with something. And we convinced ourselves that we're going to reach some sort of paradise when we're in a hellscape. And people are running on the treadmill of like, well, I'm going to get somewhere and I'm going to get to my happy place and I can't be concerned with any of this. And the people who are in charge of solving these world issues aren't. We could have universal health care. We could have free education. We could have affordable or free housing. Climate change could be taken seriously. But instead, we see what these vile men are actually doing with their power. And we keep remaining silent on all of these important issues and thinking we don't have any power to do it, and trying to say protesting doesn't work and boycotting doesn't work and voting doesn't work. But there are people in our administration who are also on our side and on the survivor side and are trying to fight back and are trying to investigate this. And that's why we need to be aware of who we're putting into office and be aware of what's happening and pay attention to the hearings and the trials to know who is actually trying to help us and who's not, and be vigilant of where you're putting your money and what corporations and companies you're supporting, because where is that money leading to? And one last thing I want to say is you don't have to, your whole life doesn't have to be centered around this. You don't have to talk about it constantly. You don't have to consume all the content. You don't have to read all the files or even any of the files to believe the women that are speaking up. And there should just be some ounce of humanity left in you that wants to be a part of the change and acknowledge the problems that are taking place in this world, and do whatever it is you can to protect each other and be there for each other. And that was what I wanted, my main thing I wanted to say on that.
I think you hit all valid points. And we even wrote down in our Google Doc for today, why is it that so many people choose to believe that these are just allegations and not accurate accounts? And that does tie into people choosing not to inform themselves on what's actually happening and just trying to push away this information to quote unquote protect their peace and move on with their life. And like you said, try to attain their own personal goals and can't be bothered with real world global issues. And believe that it's easier to push away the reality than accept what is truly happening, and to accept just how vile and evil the people running this country and running the countries around the world are. You know, when you do inform yourself of what is actually in the files, it does go beyond the United States. And we do know that there are trafficking rings around the world. And it's wild that, you know, these accounts have been on record for decades. And these types of activities have been going on,
for centuries. This has happened to, we know that this has happened to enslaved people, indigenous people. These are stories that have been told over and over and over and over again. And I don't know, I'm getting, and I keep seeing people say you're not angry enough. And I think that's where I'm at too, where there are some people who are just like, okay, I can't look at this, I gotta look away, or like, will maybe even try to tell us that like, oh, you shouldn't be bothered with that, or you shouldn't just, don't pay attention to that, or like, don't spiral so much into it. And again, the overconsumption can fall into many categories. Obviously, looking at all this disgusting, I don't even have the words to describe it, but looking at all these things is very harmful to your brain, obviously.
But what's even more harmful is that these people are still in power. These people are still making decisions that affect everyone. These people are running our government, running multiple governments.
And I think it also comes back to the ego, and this is a topic we've discussed before, where people are like, well, I gotta look out for me and I gotta take care of me. And that's exactly the world they've created, where it's like, focus on yourself. And again, people think, well, I'm just gonna go about my life and go to my job and make my money, and I'm gonna make this. They're still, ironically enough, believing in this American dream of like, well, I'm gonna make it to this place and I'm gonna buy my land and I'm gonna have my little house and I'm gonna be fine in my little bubble. And I'm just like, no, you're missing the whole point. Like, you are becoming, again, submissive to the dictatorship that is taking place globally. You are just being submissive at that point.
You know, one can only hope that the people that voted for the president of the United States, the current president of the United States, is really reflecting on that decision and hopefully regretting that decision and are educating themselves better so that they don't make the same mistake in the future. You know, we already knew what type of person he was from, you know, for years now. This is the second time he's our president. This is the second time.
He's already a convicted felon. I just don't know how much more proof people need.
And it's unfortunate that we have quote unquote leaders that are, you know, standing in front of cameras and trying to convince all of us that there's nothing to see here. There's not enough substantial evidence. They're telling everyone to move on. There's nothing more that can be done. We have Todd Blanche, who explicitly went in front of news outlets and told us that there's nothing to prosecute because there's not enough evidence.
Right. And that's what we're seeing, and we've seen time and time again when there's been police shootings and now ICE shootings, and they get on camera and they lie to our faces. And
that's why we say, when you aren't thinking critically, there are these people who are like, okay, well, Todd Blanche said that there's no substantial evidence, so I guess he's right. Let's move on and close the case.
And there are still people who are going to look at us and be like, you're being a conspiracy theorist. And it's like, we can take all of the outrageous things that are hard to believe out of it, even though there's proof. All right, let's take that aside. What about, again, the survivors and the women who are like, this is what happened to me?
We do have a few sources we want to present regarding the files. So, do you want to start with your video?
I have two videos.
Okay.
The first one I want to show, again, just to, because I'm talking about the survivors, I want to show this first video how, again, they released these files and they redact it a lot, but what they didn't redact is the victims' names.
Which we have to ask. This is where we start asking questions. Was this intentional? Why was this intentional? Why were certain co-conspirators' names redacted, but these victims' names weren't? And that's, you know, that's the thing. Sure, you may, if you're one of those people that are like, I don't believe it, for whatever reason, right? That doesn't stop you from still asking questions and trying to figure out motives behind certain decisions that are being made.
Right, we're not questioning enough, and we've, again, talked about this in all of our videos now about critical thinking. The world is lacking critical thinking. No one is not no one, but a lot of people are not reading anymore. They're not educating themselves. They're not informing themselves. They're not getting involved. Again, this is supposed to be a democracy, and everyone has just become complacent in, well, what can I do? Well, I'm not political. Well, I just don't care. And it's just like, that's why they're just gonna keep getting away with it, because you feel helpless and powerless, and that's exactly how they want you to feel. All right. So this video that I am about to show is from CNN, and they spoke to one of the survivors, and their information was not redacted out of the file, and we're just gonna let her explain what happened.
Worst of it is, I think, like, well, I don't know if it's the worst of it, but it has my full name, my birthday, my address. The thing that is redacted is Danny in that. Her nickname. And I'm not the only one. Like, how is any of this acceptable?
Survivors of Jeffrey Epstein are furious with the Justice Department for its failure to properly redact the millions of Epstein files that it released on Friday, including some information about the alleged victims. They're also accusing the DOJ of over-redacting information that some victims have shared about Epstein and those around him.
Publishing images of victims while shielding predators it's just a failure of complete justice. And it's like there's this deep sense of betrayal when the system's meant to protect you.
This is a victim statement. It was 7 pages long. In a victim statement, it tells what happened, who did it. It basically outlines everything that this person experienced and shared with the FBI. It was 7 pages long, and 4 of them looked like this. This is clearly strategic. Clearly, incompetence is the strategy. Like it is the strategy to intimidate us, I believe, to make us feel like we shouldn't keep going.
The redactions could have been done by a 5-year-old. You might as well just go ahead and give them to a grade 3 class. They could do much better than these lawyers. Who are these lawyers? Who are these volunteers?
Who are these people? Yeah,
I mean, they don't know how to read.
A DOJ spokesperson says they are working around the clock to fix any redaction issues, and that only 0.1% of the files released so far contain unredacted information about the victims.
This is about survivors everywhere. This is about anyone who has ever been sexually victimized and has, felt like they can't tell anyone or talk to anyone about it, who has felt fearful of, approaching law enforcement. We're sending a really strong message that, it's easier to remain silent.
I know there was also an ad played during the Super Bowl that had the Epstein survivors in the commercial, again, trying to still spread awareness, as they've been doing for years now, to try to get people to listen and to care. The next video I'm going to show is by a user. Her name is I Am Politics Girl. Her name is Lee McGowan. Hopefully I said that correctly. And she is vocal on what's happening in the world, and specifically about the Epstein Files. And again, we need more people who are willing to bring awareness to the reality of the situation. Because obviously we're all aware of the Epstein Files, but I think people kind of throw that word around and aren't truly informed on what is actually happening.
I'm home from New York, and you might have seen me online this week making this face before I lost it on Scott Jennings for minimizing the horrendous and sickening crimes in the Epstein Files. But I wanted to show you the moment that came right before, the moment that got my face like this.
Right, today marks 1 month since the Justice Department was required by law to release all of the Epstein Files. So far, it's released less than 1%. The law, Scott says, that the Justice Department shall release all the Epstein Files, not can, if it wants to or gets around to it.
Yeah, what's the punishment if they don't?
That's a great point. I mean, that's a problem.
There is none.
Did you hear it? Did you see? The administration is breaking the law. hiding the evidence of probably the most far-reaching child sex trafficking operation in history. And the MAGA position, which is what Scott represents, is so what? What are you going to do if we break the law and run cover for pedophiles and rapists and murderers? Nothing. Play it again.
Yeah, what's the punishment if they don't?
That's a great point. I mean, that's a problem.
There is none.
Did you see the smirk? These people think they're going to get away with it, and they think it's funny. And that's what made my face do this.
They should follow the law, but let's not get our knickers in a twist here. There's no
let's not get our
punishment for
knickers in a twist over child rape. Why are you talking like that? It's insane.
And let's be clear. 2 days after this heated exchange went viral, the Republicans in the Oversight Committee voted no on a motion to hold Pam Bondi and the DOJ in contempt of Congress for violating the Epstein Files Transparency Act, for not releasing what they are responsible to release, for not telling us why they redacted what they redacted. The Republicans voted to not hold the people responsible for breaking the law responsible. So to Scott's point, what are we going to do about it?
What's the punishment if they don't?
That's a great point. I mean, that's a problem.
There is none.
Well, fuck that. These people are running cover for monsters, for true evil. 2 of the people mentioned in the recent Sasha Riley testimony that was leaked online are on the committee that voted no. I honestly feel like we're in the upside down. Every single one of you that's in Congress that isn't in these files should be walking around with this face and this energy, because I'm just a citizen of this country, but you are a representative. You are the only ones who can do something about it. So do something about it. At the very least, if you are looking to round up child rapists and murderers, then you might want to get the hell out of Minnesota and get back into these files.
Well said.
And that man's face, and a lot of these men's faces where I've been watching videos on the hearings of what's been going on, just so smug about it. And the thing is, and the scary, like one of the scarier things is they're starting to try to normalize harming children. That's the scary thing, because these survivors are women now, but they were children when it happens. And again, saying young women when it's a child, and then not viewing teenagers as children still, and it's just so much that goes into it. And this is why we need to pay attention to who is in our Congress, who is in our Supreme Court. Like we mentioned earlier, Brett Kavanaugh, how this woman came forward. She tried her best to stop this man from getting into one of the most powerful positions, and nothing happened. And then again, we're seeing it over and over again that nothing's happening. And then people take that and go, well, see, nothing happened, so whatever, move on. Like, how is that? I don't know. Like, how is that your response? Like, oh, well, we tried. What can we do?
I feel like I'm struggling to have a response because I'm disgusted and I'm hurt, and
one of the other things that was revealed is that the company that goes into every single school and takes your picture is in the files and is related to all of this shit. So Life Touch Photography, which is one of the main companies that comes into schools to take your picture. And Danny and I even talked about this because, like, our family couldn't always afford to buy the pictures, but you still had to get your picture taken, even if you weren't paying to get them. Like, unless you're not there in school that day, like, you had to go and get your picture taken. Remember we were talking about that?
this is so disgusting. Who knows what they do with these photos?
So it says Life Touch is owned by interests connected to Leon Black, who is named in the Epstein Files. How deep it actually runs and how deep-rooted this issue is. And I think that's why a lot of people start to feel helpless, because it's world leaders. It's not just in America. And there are other countries that are continuing the investigation, even though here in America, the Department of Justice and the FBI are saying it's done and it's closed, which is insane. And we talked about this again in our last two previous videos about saving the children and protecting the children. And we're not doing that.
That's the frustrating thing. We're almost forced to participate in a lot of these businesses, which is another reason why boycotts matter. And they don't want us to know who the CEOs are of a lot of these corporations or who's running this business, because if we did, then we would be more aware of who we're supporting.
Right. And that's the main point I want to get across, of be conscious of where you're putting your money.
Right. And I know it is difficult because, like we were saying, like we have like the technology we use, you know, these people are so intertwined in our everyday lives.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. It's going to take time. And we have to start chipping away. We have to start laying the foundation. We have to start building those bricks. We have to start supporting the local businesses. And if you are a local business, not selling it to the bigger corporations. And again, people can sit there and criticize us for the things that we still own, and the things, like, we're trying our best to, what's the word? De-influence, but like we're unlearning a lot, and we're slowly getting out of the matrix as best as we can. And again, a lot of people, I'm like, well, that's what I'm doing, but you're doing it, and I feel like I think there's people doing it in like an egotistical way. Do you understand, where they're like, I'm just gonna protect me, fuck everyone else. And I feel like, again, that's kind of the world we've created, where it's a dog-eat-dog world, you versus me type of situation.
Exactly, and that's what they want. They want us pitted against each other, and we say this every time when we mention that we do need to care about each other more, because this is all, and it sounds like ridiculous, but this is all part of their master plan, you know? And we're going to show a video later on where it talks about a populist movement, and we'll talk a little bit more in depth about that when I show that video. But one thing I wanted to mention, I'm going to link this video in our description. Sorry. I'm going to link this video in the description below, because I feel like it outlines a lot of important information surrounding Epstein and the people connected. But there was a comment somebody said that I wanted to read. Hold on, I lost it. I'm going to paraphrase because I'm not finding it right now.
Okay, if you find it, we'll put on the screen.
Okay. But someone was saying that the US is just 5 mega corporations in a trench coat.
Yeah.
And I think if we, a lot of this information becomes so dense. But if we had, how we love our bubble maps, if we had that bubble map so clearly depicted, we can see just how much the web is weaved. Absolutely. So this video is from it's a collaboration between the channel More Perfect Union and Jessica Burbank. I have shouted out the channel More Perfect Union in the past. I think they're a great channel, so please do check them out.
What the Epstein Files Say About Bernie Sanders, Part 2. There's a link to a Washington Post article that says Bernie Sanders says we're destroying the fabric of America, and it's by a CEO. So the guys in the Epstein Files were upset that Bernie Sanders said greedy rich dudes are destroying the moral fabric of America. I think my problem with this is when Bernie said this, he didn't know how right he was. This one is fascinating and perplexing. It's an exchange between Jeffrey Epstein and Paul Krasner, who's a satirist and the founder of the magazine The Realist. They're discussing the movement post-Trump's inauguration, almost describing what resistance to Trump looked like at the time. This is February 2017. They talked about how the people protesting the day after the inauguration were mostly women and children. It was organized, loving resistance. He talked about music like Beyonce, Gaga, and Springsteen. Icons like the Republicans with conscience, which is hilarious to call out this group as if it's something unique and new. People who stand with Trump victims, and personalities like Elizabeth Warren, John Lewis, and our boy Bernie Sanders. A lot of the emails that Jeffrey Epstein was getting were like news roundups, and so it's fascinating to me what news they were paying attention to. This one said Bernie Sanders was basically blacked out in the media during the election. The same email where they were discussing a black singer evoking imagery of the Black Panthers. It seems like any sort of social movement, counterculture makes these guys nervous. They're paying very close attention to them. Epstein shared this piece about populist movements and how they can grow. You could begin to see the elements of Bernie Sanders coupled with the Trump movement that really becomes a dominant force in American politics. And they're talking about how Steve Bannon intentionally went to go study movements that merged nationalism and populism. And Bannon also mainstreamed a lot of QAnon ideas. The idea that there's a secret group of pedophile elites, the deep state controlling the government, when all along he was boys with Jeffrey Epstein. They tried to conjure up a populist movement in America while being a group of elites trying to pull the puppet strings of our politics, like the opposite of populism. And of course, here's a favorite from Larry Summers. He's doing well, except for the fact that his kids love Bernie Sanders. It's really giving, you might not like this one, but your kids are gonna love it. It actually feels good that these guys were trying to create a populist movement that they could steer and control to their own personal benefit. And now the populists in America are united in their hatred of Epstein and his closest friends. And so as much as they want to try to destroy the moral fabric of America, I think it's beautiful that collectively we're not letting this go, and we're not letting them.
Don't you find it so interesting how they were keeping up with certain news and certain influences that were steering this populist movement into, you know, into conjuring more power to the people and backing that, like she said, that moral fabric of America? And they want to try to puppeteer a narrative to gain control over these movements.
Right, and we've spoken about this before when it comes to like celebrity idolization and paying attention to who you're supporting, and we talked about this with Nicki Minaj. And it's not a coincidence when you see a celebrity endorsing a politician, because they are aware of the influence they have on other people. And again, this also is showing how much celebrities and politics are intertwined, and they've always been.
I wanted to bring up, I think, an important cultural shift we just witnessed with the Super Bowl halftime, where we had this monumental moment of Bad Bunny's performance. And no matter how much they tried to shift attention, right, with Turning Point USA having their own performance,
which is just so ridiculous. Like, who who do you think would tune into that other than the you know what I'm saying? Like, that was put there for the racist people. Like, I don't know how they thought that that was gonna inspire anyone else to turn off the Super Bowl. You know what I'm saying?
But what did we see? We saw 135 million viewers watch the Super Bowl halftime show of Bad Bunny's performance. So that does show you how powerful we still have the power, and that shows you just how important it is to
show up,
to participate in the right way.
Yes, and then going off of that, because again, I think Trump has this delusion of, and I guess it's not so much of a delusion because people always want to point out how many votes he got in the last election and talk about the millions of people that put him into office. And again, going back to what I keep fucking driving in this video, is because there are so many people who choose just to not participate and not be political, and they can have good intentions and be good people, but they're not joining in on, you know what I'm saying? Like, they're not joining in as they should be, and they're not showing up when they should be. So I think that he believed that he had more of a following than he does.
Well, that's why I wanted to point out, and like that video mentioned, they are keeping an eye on what is drawing the population, what the population, like the majority of the population is drawn to, right? And we see that 135 million views supporting Bad Bunny and supporting his performance and what the significance of his performance really showcased and what it really represented. And I think looking back at what Jessica mentioned in her video about what they're keeping tabs on, because they realize that they do have to intersect in a manipulative way in order to maintain that control, because the people will always win, right? Like, I think it's a cliche to say, but love does win, and I think peace and morale does win. As much as we feel like there is so many injustices, I think there's a lot more to us coming together as a community and showing up for one another in this human experience. Like you mentioned, not being passive and really being present and involved is what is going to transform. It's what's going to shift the narrative, right?
Right, we are the majority, and I think sometimes we forget that, even though we don't hold the power per se, as we do, but we don't think that we do because we don't have the money and the status. But we definitely do have the power, and we are the majority.
Well, that's why I'm saying we do see that when there are 135 million people supporting Bad Bunny's performance in comparison to those that are watching Turning Point USA, right?
Right. And again, to go into, like, to pivot just slightly but not fully, of like, again, we talk about people are like, oh, well, you were just saying not to idolize celebrities and celebrity worship and da-da-da, right? But that, I want to think of how I want to say this.
Well, I don't think it's idolization. I think that we're trying to show a message, right, against racism and against white supremacy by supporting this halftime performance. And we see that there's more significance in this performance than it just being music.
I'm not going to say this, and for some reason, I don't know how to articulate this correctly, but I understand we have to find empowerment within the corruption, if that makes sense. So like, even though the NFL isn't the best organization to support, I guarantee majority of the people that tuned into the halftime show weren't tuned into the majority of the Super Bowl. And there are people out there who are like, oh, they're just trying to appease people by making it a Hispanic artist, but then look at all the things that are happening with ICE. But again, I think it's important to have this kind of art and these kind of messages put out there and take what we can from this art and use it to empower people, and it's better than doing nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like, these artists who even at the Grammys are saying fuck ICE and making it a point to say these things in their speeches, and people be like, oh, they don't actually care about you. These people don't care about you. But again, I think it's better to say something than to sit and be complacent. I didn't phrase that to the best of my ability, but I tried.
I agree with you. And we do need to wrap up today's episode, but we do have one last video we wanted to share that kind of ties into art and entertainment. And we've mentioned him before, George Carlin, who is a comedian, and he's another person that would tie in, his comedy would intertwine with politics. He still decided to use his platform and his influence to call out the corruption.
And I'll link this full video down below because I'm just going to show you a part of it.
These people are efficient, professional, compulsive consumers. It's their civic duty, consumption. It's the new national pastime. Fuck baseball, it's consumption. The only true, lasting American value that's left, buying things. Buying things. People spending money they don't have on things they don't need. Money they don't have on things they don't need. So they can max out their credit cards and spend the rest of their lives paying 18% interest on something that costs $12.50. And they didn't like it when they got it home anyway. Not too bright, folks. Not too fucking bright. But if you talk to one of them about this, if you isolate one of them, you sit them down rationally, you talk to them about the low IQs and the dumb behavior and the bad decisions, right away they start talking about education. That's the big answer to everything. Education. They say we need more money for education. We need more books, more teachers, more classrooms, more schools. We need more testing for the kids. And you say to them, well, you know, we've tried all of that and the kids still can't pass the test. He says, don't you worry about that. We're going to lower the passing grades. And that's what they do in a lot of these schools now. They lower the passing grades so more kids can pass. More kids pass, the school looks good, everybody's happy, the IQ of the country slips another 2 or 3 points, and pretty soon all you'll need to get into college is a fucking pencil. Got a pencil? Get the fuck in there, it's physics. Then everyone wonders why 17 other countries graduate more scientists than we do. Education. Politicians know that word, they use it on you. Politicians have traditionally hidden behind 3 things: the flag, the Bible, and children. No child left behind. No child left behind. Oh, really? Well, it wasn't long ago you were talking about giving kids a head start. Head start, left behind. Someone's losing fucking ground here. But there's a reason. There's a reason. There's a reason for this. There's a reason education sucks, and it's the same reason that it will never, ever, ever be fixed. It's never going to get any better. Don't look for it. Be happy with what you got. Because the owners of this country don't want that. I'm talking about the real owners now. The real owners, the big wealthy business interests that control things and make all the important decisions. Forget the politicians. The politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice. You don't. You have no choice. You have owners. They own you. They own everything. They own all the important land. They own and control the corporations. They've long since bought and paid for the Senate, the Congress, the state houses, the city halls. They got the judges in their back pockets. And they own all the big media companies, so they control just about all of the news and information you get to hear. They spend billions of dollars every year lobbying to get what they want. Well, we know what they want. They want more for themselves and less for everybody else. But I'll tell you what they don't want. They don't want a population of citizens capable of critical thinking. They don't want well-informed, well-educated people capable of critical thinking. They're not interested in that. That doesn't help them. That's against their interest. That's right. They don't want people who are smart enough to sit around the kitchen table and figure out how badly they're getting fucked by a system that threw them overboard 30 fucking years ago. They don't want that. You know what they want? They want obedient workers. Obedient workers. People who are just smart enough to run the machines and do the paperwork and just dumb enough to passively accept all these increasingly shittier jobs with the lower pay, the longer hours, the reduced benefits, the end of overtime, and the vanishing pension that disappears the minute you go to collect it. And now they're coming for your Social Security money. They want your fucking retirement money. They want it back so they can give it to their criminal friends on Wall Street. And you know something? They'll get it. They'll get it all from you sooner or later because they own this fucking place. It's a big club, and you ain't in it. You and I are not in the big club. And by the way, it's the same big club they used to beat you over the head with all day long when they tell you what to believe. All day long, beating you over the head in their media, telling you what to believe, what to think, and what to buy. The table is tilted, folks. The game is rigged. And nobody seems to notice. Nobody seems to care. Good, honest, hard-working people, white collar, blue collar, doesn't matter what color shirt you have on. Good, honest, hard-working people continue. These are people of modest means. Continue to elect these rich cocksuckers who don't give a fuck about them. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't care about you at all. At all. At all. Yeah. You know? And nobody seems to notice, nobody seems to care. That's what the owners count on, the fact that Americans will probably remain willfully ignorant.
So we just want to end things on that note. And I feel like, again, it talks about everything we've talked about in previous videos and we'll continue to talk about in future videos. Of course, not all of our videos are going to be on such dark subjects. And again, we're going to just repeat ourselves over and over again. We want to bring awareness, and we're always going to speak up and never stay silent.
Thank you all so much for watching. I know this episode was very heavy, and we appreciate you all for watching, and we have to make sure that we're continuing to shed light on the corruption and on the evil. And like Mel said, that's something we're going to continuously do through our episodes. Of course, there'll be more lighthearted ones in the future, but we did feel like it was important to discuss this today.
Thank you to everyone watching. Stay safe. We love you.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.